All right. Well, speaking of dragging us into a dream, we finally got through an hour of the program so that we could see the 9 o'clock hour. Actually, not even 8:57. They wanted Jey Uso in the ring so that they'd be all into the thing at 9 o'clock. And the crowd is chanting Usos and Usos and Usos. And Jay's talking about, because obviously Jimmy has been hospitalized by that vicious attack or medical facility. I'm not sure what they're saying these days. But Jay talked about, that he and Jimmy were twins. They'd been inseparable. And the way he was doing the promo, the crowd started whatting him. But for one of the few times I can remember, it worked. And not only that, but when he got to a serious point that didn't need the what, they backed up and worked with him. Did you notice that?
It was one of the greatest examples of mastery of the what chant, because they were going to do it and it got louder and louder as he was building up, and then he went to the full sentence as opposed to just throwing out a phrase.
Yeah, and it worked in the context of what he was saying. It didn't detract. It was helping him boost and we did this together, what, and that together, and or whatever the fuck, right? It worked somehow. So, I don't know, he was a very cunning linguist there. But anyway, being twins is what makes us special. If he's hurt, I'm hurt too. And I never thought that we'd be hurt by our own family. And he respects his whole family. He went through all of them. And there was another great what? My aunt, my uncle, whatever. What? But not Roman. Ooh. And I'm going to spank my little brother Solo. Ooh. And then, of course, here comes right at 9 o'clock. My name is Paul Heyman. Could it have been, I don't know about his health and his cholesterol, but could it have been the best thing for him that he is ballooned to the massive body weight that he possesses now from when he was just a little shit when he was, in the late 80s when he was Paulie Dangerously, because it's made him slow down. Because he's got such gravitas now with his measured way of speaking and his command of the language, whereas before the psycho yuppie was like, just remember, fucking, what was it, 35 years ago, I outweighed him by at least 25 pounds.
He was never a small guy, though, once he was an adult.
I don't think in 88, when we were working with each other, he didn't weigh 200 pounds. Couldn't have. He was a puny little thing, probably but 195, 195-pound weakling.
You could body slam him?
Are you fucking kidding? I never even tried. It wasn't that it wasn't that I couldn't slam him if he'd go up. I wasn't going to herniate myself with him not being able to figure out how to go up. I could pick Crusher Khrushchev up, Barry Darso, for a body slam when in Mid-South when I weighed 200 and he weighed 295 because he knew how to go up. I wouldn't slam him, but I could get him up and hold him for a second. I don't know if I could have got Paul 6 inches off the fucking ground.
Because he wouldn't know how to go up, and
no,
not to play spoiler, he still doesn't know how to bump, but let's go.
No, that's I'm just saying that's why I said he's the only guy in the business I've ever been able to blow up, even back then, and he's the only guy that I've ever worked with that I had to fucking lead and was the experienced veteran in the fucking situation. Anyway, so Heyman interrupted. And he and Solo come out, and they say they're there to enforce the peace. They're just going to get in and have a conversation. And I can't do justice to what Paul says and the way he says it, but the story is that, he's telling Jay, you know how this whole thing works. Next week, because Jay has challenged Roman. So next week, Jay and Roman will meet face to face as it has been done by your father and his father before him and his father before him, the whole island dynasty thing, to discuss the rules of engagement. This has been handed down through the generation. This is classic Paul Heyman booking also, too, by the way. This is fucking great. So as long as he's not in charge of the checkbook, or you don't have to get him on the phone. And Paul is playing mind games with Jay. He's telling him at one point he sounds more like a tribal chief every day, but then he turns it on him. What happened to Jimmy is your fault. You're the one that opposed Roman. You wanted to lead the family. And then Paul tells Jimmy out there in TV land, you know it's Jay's fault. Will you ever forgive him? He tells Jay, will your father ever forgive you? And it just, again, this is fucking Peyton Place for you senior citizen soap opera fans out there.
And Jey Uso's facial reactions to everything, to every name that's being said.
Yeah.
Perfect.
And, and they're sticking to the universe that they've created where this bloodline, this family, the honor, the elders, the tribal chiefs, the wise men, it's all fucking preposterous, and it works because they've built it, and they didn't just shit on details in it or just make shit up as they want to. It sounds legitimate. Anyway, so then Solo tells Jay that he's never going to forgive him, and Jay fucking pickles him. And they get in a fight, and Jay dumps Solo, and then he stalks Paul. And the only thing I know they need to milk, but I don't know that Jay has ever been in that position before on how to, when he's really been over and how to fucking stalk somebody that's really got heat, but he needed to make more advancement. He needed to cover more ground. He just kind of got there, and you could tell he was not getting close enough to where when he got cut off, it needs to be the rug pulled out from under people, right? If he'd have just slowly turned and one foot in front of the other all the way across to Paul, and by the time he laid hands on Paul's jowls, there's Solo. Oh my God, the people they'd need to change their shorts. But anyway, so Solo from behind, and Jay gets back on Solo, and that's where I wrote on my notes, Paul slides in, but I don't know if that really does it justice. But poor Paul, as best he could, it's not easy for Paul anymore when he's off his feet, right? To get anywhere, because I think he's laying on his stomach, his arms don't reach the ground. But anyway, he kind of wallers under the bottom rope and stands up, and there comes Jay with the super kick, and Paul, you can see him, he's doing the same thing he did 35 years ago. If you try to throw a punch at him,
wincing.
He winces. He's good. Good king winces a lot. He winced and boom, and he crumpled to the ground. You could have fucking heard a mouse pissing on cotton when he hit the mat because it was like an Oxbaker rolling bump. But the people went crazy because he never falls down. And then a big bump on a Solo, and it grabbed a chair and, whacked Solo with it, and the heels bailed out, and there we go And next week, we know there's going to be some shit take place because they're going to decide the rules of engagement between Jay and Roman. So
for SummerSlam.
So we got that going for us. What did you think of this whole dramatic rendition?
This was tremendous. If I was making a best of videotape for friends to trade around or send around, this would have been on it for this week. Jey Uso, I said it to you before, he's the most real guy. I'm not saying everything's real. He comes across real. He looks real. He sounds real. He reacts real. And the only thing, I agree with what you said. And as you were saying it, I was picturing it, him walking across the ring the way he did. But the way I thought of it as it was happening was, it's a big move beyond Roman. It's a big move family-wide for him to strike Heyman. So maybe that took a second or two for him to, okay, I'm doing this, and do it. That's the only thing I could think of, but Heyman was fantastic. I mean, where he was saying, your mom won't forgive you, just going through the whole family.
And there's a bunch of them.
It's tremendous. And, the main event Jay thing, there was a big sign there, dead center, as it was happening, and he's going to get the main event with Roman. And I think he has stood out for, a while now as just maybe a breakaway star from this thing eventually. This was a fantastic segment. No Roman, but you got the big moment of the Heyman bump, and Heyman never bumps.
And Russ never sleeps, and Heyman never bumps.
Well, you never see Heyman get hit. I guess I should put it that way.
Actually, people are afraid, because if you get up close enough to him, he's got such a gravitational pull around his equator.
Stop it.
But anyway, so, hey, I'm fucking older than him and I'm in better physical condition. I'm never going to let him forget it.
How about a rematch?
I don't know about that. He might hurt me working with me. Fuck, at this point, if he fell on me alone.